Oh, hi, friends, and welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. Today, I am going to continue our conversation all about flat fee retainers, and this is going to be kind of an additional episode from episode 65, How to Take Retainer Payments the Right Way. So go listen to that episode first. After my many Facebook group forum conversations and market research regarding flat fee retainers, I need to update all of you. And of course, I want to ensure that you add in flat fee retainers to your payment structure the right and legal way. So let's dive into it. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about on this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. I am only your attorney when you hire me and we sign an engagement letter for me to work specifically on your legal issues. Please feel free to seek out another attorney in your hometown if you need specific legal advice or contact me for more information. Alrighty, here's the episode, friends. Like I talked about in our intro, today is all about just updating you all on flat fee retainers because I discussed this in episode 65 regarding a major shift that I would suggest for wedding industry vendors and the photography industry as a whole. So we all took a major hit with COVID in 2020 as photographers, videographers, wedding industry professionals regarding retainers. And so it's really time to check in on your payment structure and ensure that you are doing so legally legit when it comes to all things taking payments regarding booking retainers. Now, I first want to say that anything that the Legal Paige suggests is just that. It's a legal suggestion. You are more than welcome to continue on with percentage retainers if that makes more sense for your business. Like if you're taking a 50% retainer or a 30% retainer. I want you to only do this, though, if you can legally justify doing so and you're willing to move forward with the risk that you're charging clients different amounts to book a date out on your calendar. When TLP suggested percentage retainers previously in our wedding and elopement photography contracts, there were still, you guys, hundreds, if not thousands of photographers that continued on with a flat fee model. Thus, the way you run your guys' business is different than others, and that is okay if you can do so legitimately. I'm not saying the whole industry as a whole is going to now suddenly and magically move to flat fee retainers. There's still going to be people that do so on a percentage model. So I am here to just answer kind of a Q&A regarding flat fee retainers as generally as I can. Everything that I have been asked from people is pretty specific to that person's business, and I just want to answer it to the whole of my Legal Paige community. I do want to give another disclaimer, though. You absolutely need to reach out to your personal attorney to come up with a solution that's catered to your business. I am not your attorney, as you guys hear in my legal disclaimer given in these podcast episodes each and every time, because I have to do so for legal purposes. You guys know that. And so because each person's business is different, I went on some Facebook Lives on the Legal Paige community, and I asked different types of wedding vendors like elopement photographers and then wedding photographers and florists and DJs, so on and so forth, planners, what their payment structures were. I looked at their different package offerings, and then I helped them. And I wanted to kind of go over that here on this follow-up episode today regarding flat fee retainers. So let's go over a couple different wedding vendors and what I would suggest. I'm going to start with elopement photographers, like adventure elopement photographers, because they do things a lot different because they're also planning for couples. They oftentimes don't hire wedding planners because the photographer already knows all the things they need to plan. And the photographer is probably going to be the only third party with them on, say, backcountry elopement. So the photographers are looking at locations, they're getting permits, and so much more. And let's say that this elopement photographer has 3 packages for blocking out one day on his or her calendar. I would start with this person's lowest package. Say it's $2,500 for an elopement. The flat fee retainer would probably be around the 50% mark. So I'm going to say $1,250 is your flat fee retainer. You're not going to put a percentage on it, just a number, $1,250. And that would be your flat fee retainer for booking out one day a week on your calendar. If you have, say, a 2-day package or a 3-day package, I really want you to look at the lowest package for one day, and that is how you're going to come up with your flat fee retainer. So $1,250 for one day, but if you have a 2-day package, then you could charge $2,500, and you could charge $3,750 for a 3-day package, so on and so forth. For your large packages, again, there's probably more upfront work regarding planning and ensuring that you are getting to these remote locations and that your people have the proper equipment and all of the things that you're working on with your clients. And you're doing a lot of upfront work to just like plan out the day, figure out the time period, figure out the location, and work with them on, like how far they want to hike in and how steep and those type of things. You probably have more upfront work there with, say, a larger package because there's more time involved. If you have a package that is 10 hours for one day versus a 3 or 4 hour elopement photography package, you're probably doing a lot more work on your end. And I suggest that you have that $1,250 booking retainer, but then you add in upfront costs that are probably for the first 90 days of service. So say, for example, this elopement photographer that I'm looking at their pricing did a 2-day elopement package. So they're probably working 18, 20 hours from, day 1 and day 2 combined together. I would suggest that person do a $2,500 flat fee retainer because they're booking out 2 days on their calendar. And then they could do an upfront cost of even $1,000 or $2,000 more for planning purpose services. That is for the first 90 days that you are working with that client upon booking. Now, if you're a wedding planner and you're listening to this podcast, your fee structure is probably going to follow this very similar type of plan. You're going to want to have a flat fee booking retainer that's pretty standard across the board for any day that a client is booking you. Maybe you nuance that for like a Saturday date versus, like a Sunday through Friday date. But you, as a wedding planner, are probably going to have payments due upfront for, the fees for the first 90 days of services. And then you're probably going to have installment payments due every 3 months thereafter because you're performing services along the way. That is why elopement photography is very similar, because you're a quasi planner. Now I want to touch on florists because I thought this was really interesting that came up in our group. With florists, there are different variables when it comes to booking weddings and bidding on them. There's no real set price when it comes to florists because oftentimes florists are getting inquiries, hey, can you do my florals? And the florist then asks, what venue are you at? What is your budget for your florals for your wedding and or elopement? And then do they have not only the people power to do that as the actual floral company, but how many people do they have on site? Is this like a pickup? Someone's coming to their, floral brick and mortar shop and picking up the florals? Or are you actually providing people power on site to build all of the florals for their wedding? Flat fee retainers they're a little tricky for this situation. So I would suggest as florists that you take some sort of flat fee retainer on the overall pricing that you charge the couple for 2 different things. Pickups are going to be one set pricing because it doesn't matter as long as it's a similar, it's $150 that you need to pay as a booking retainer to get your florals on that date. Because you're probably only going to have so many pickup orders on a day because you only have so much, employees or contractors working for you. And then for a regular, for a venue type of wedding, you would probably want to take maybe $1,000 or $1,250 for a flat fee retainer. And then you just charge more throughout the process for like larger, like 10K floral budgets, 15K floral budgets. Some fairly substantial budgets, you would want to charge kind of like a larger fee on top of the booking fee, because you're going to be spending a lot of time in communication with a couple before the actual wedding, as well as creating mood boards, talking to wholesalers, getting pricing. You want to ensure that all of those fees are paid through your clients throughout the whole process, because you don't want to lose out on that money, which is why you need to explain all of that in your contract. And then if you're a florist who offers pickup at your store, I would suggest that you just keep kind of like a smaller amount up front for that. So kind of maybe average out what your pickup like pricing is from 2020 and be like, okay, this was the average price of florals that people would pick up from our store for XYZ wedding. Maybe it's around $500 to $800. Let's look at like our percentage model used to be about 50% of that. So let's take $250 as our flat fee retainer. And then you can do either installment payments or just have them pay the rest upon picking up. I truly, truly believe that you as a florist will be able to justify, though, either a flat fee retainer model or a percentage model in court, because especially for pickup services, you could even charge a percentage amount. And this is key because they are like picking up a certain amount of florals, like the total amount due, versus booking a day for you to perform services and block out the date on your calendar. And I hope that that's clear. You could have 10, 15, 20 pickups on one like Saturday. Maybe it's like 10, 10, 20, 20, right? Like that was a really popular date. Maybe you're one of 3 florists in your town that are really well known. And so you're going to have a ton of people picking up florals on that day, but maybe you can only provide in-person services for floral arrangements and structures at large venue weddings for 2 people on that day. That would be when you need to take a flat fee retainer versus pickup orders. Okay, now I want to touch on bar catering services and packages. So what's really cool with this flat fee retainer model is that it's kind of similar to florists in this regard. So if you're like a caterer or a bartender and you do packages for what you offer, like the number of guests, the liquor quantity, etc., my biggest tip for you is that you still charge a flat fee retainer even if you have multiple weddings on one day, because you're always going to max out on how many weddings you can take in a day and service them with in-person services. Again, this is different. If you are offering like catering services that are pickup, like a florist, you could definitely charge a percentage retainer for that kind of situation because you can probably serve a lot more clients. But for like bar services, catering services, you're definitely going to max out. Maybe you only have 5 certified bartenders and you only have 5 of them on hand, on staff. So if you are booking out them for various weddings, and maybe some weddings even need 2 bartenders and they're having 2 bars at their wedding, that is the same thing as like a photographer that is saying no to other clients for booking that date on their calendar. So I would do probably around like, and again, you guys need to look at your own packages for this. Just go back to episode 65 where I talk about how to extrapolate this specifically for your business. But usually like 200, 250, 300 is a good booking retainer for like catering and bar services, because it doesn't matter the size of the package that they book. I think it's legitimate and it's not too much of a burden to your clients when it's around $200 to $300. And then you can always sell higher packages to your clients once they start looking at their head count. I would put on your contract that you can only cancel up to 60 days prior to the date, because I definitely don't think you could book a new client in that 60 days for bar and catering services. They're usually pretty booked out on the calendars, but about a $200, $250, $300 booking retainer is going to be sufficient enough that you would never have to refund that, especially for in-person bar and catering services. And then you could just upsell them like crazy. The person that I looked at for this pricing structure was specifically a bar catering service person. So they were providing alcoholic beverages to their clients and non-alcoholic beverages at a bar type of situation. What you can see is it really has to do with your packages when deciding the flat fee retainers, because I want you to look at your packages and see what seems reasonable. I use that word reasonable all the time because the reasonableness of retainers is what got argued from clients due to COVID 2020 cancellations and reschedulings. Hey, legal pagers. If you're tuning into this episode and are wanting to ensure you're legally legit moving forward into 2021, as this crazy year of 2020 winds up, I've got you, my friend. The Legal Page is having our biggest sale of the year over Black Friday week, and I do not want you to miss out. Which means you need to become a TLP insider today, because you're going to get exclusive deals just for you as an insider. You need to go to bit.ly/TLP insider to sign up. Again, that's bit.ly/TLP insider. Sign up today, my friends. Now I want to touch on kind of childhood and family photography. This is really interesting because you probably do have different collections and bundles that you typically sell to your clients. So maybe for, I remember specifically when I was looking at kind of a maternity, newborn session photographers packages, they had like the standard 1 hour packages, and that's fine to keep at like the 50% sitting fee, 50% retainer. It's totally fine because you're not blocking out a day on your calendar. You're just blocking out a time and a date, but any person could, also book on that date for another time. So it's okay to charge people, and it's the same amount. If you have a 1 hour session fee, you're going to be charging the same amount for all clients with the 50%, right? It's a $500 package. You're going to be charging $250 for everybody that would book the 1 hour package. It gets a little tricky when you're kind of a family childhood photographer that's doing like these large, like 2-year packages. It's basically like your clients are paying you a retainer throughout, the past 2 to 3 years of their kids, like coming into the world. Oftentimes in these situations, that is not necessary to have a flat fee retainer. And here's why. Because they're not really booking out a date on your calendar. You can be a lot more flexible with those situations. It's very, very similar to like the 1 hour sessions. So I think you're fine still doing the 50% percentage booking fee because it's not booking a date out on your calendar. It's just agreeing to the contract for like a 2-year retainer for your services for maternity photos, then newborn photos, maybe fresh 48, and then of course family photos, like 1-year photos, that kind of thing throughout the, first couple of years of the little's life. I think it's extremely reasonable because you're charging the same amount for clients per hour and then the same amount for larger packages per client. You aren't charging them each different amounts because, like I said, you're charging the same amount per hour. That's really important here. I know I keep saying that, but it goes without saying that wedding and elopement photography packages are a lot different than just portrait sessions because usually those are set fees for either 1 hour or 2 hours, and you're charging clients the exact same amount. So it's reasonable. You can always argue that it's reasonable. Okay, finally, a few other considerations all around for people who are thinking about charging a flat fee retainer, but are a bit skeptical to move forward in a new direction with their pricing structure and charging clients flat fee retainers. I'm just going to kind of do some FAQs here. So first, someone asked, Paige, I do hourly session pricing as a portrait photographer, but I also have wedding packages. How do I charge flat fees accordingly? So hour sessions and then blocking out entire days for elopements or weddings are different. And again, I just want to reiterate this. You can charge a percentage retainer for an hourly session because you're not charging clients differently. You're charging them the same for a 1-hour session, and you have the ability to book multiple client sessions on the same date when you only have 1 hour to perform services, even if travel is involved, because I know you could probably argue that if you're listening in. Even if travel is involved, you could probably still do like a sunrise session and a sunset session. It's when you book out an entire day or 2 days or more, like a whole week, that is that specific client's date only. Then a flat fee retainer is specifically there for booking X date or X dates on your calendar. Thus, you absolutely need to have a different flat fee for wedding and elopement packages. And you can definitely do a percentage model if you want for hourly sessions, but I would just suggest if it's 50%, just go with the flat fee of the 50%. So it's a flat fee model too. Next, someone asked me, hey, Paige, my clients in the past oftentimes booked me because I had nice round numbers, such as $3,000 for a wedding photography package. And those packages didn't have a bunch of like nonsense additional fees wrapped into them. And clients were really enticed by that because it's just clean. It's an easy number. Doesn't your whole flat fee model, really defeat the purpose to make things harder for clients, actually? All right. My answer to this is nicely rounded numbers come with consequences because there's nothing laid out in your contract that's attributable to that amount. If you don't explain what the amounts are for, you're opening yourself up to the ability for clients to say that they deserve a full or partial refund of the retainer. Say you charge 50%. So you had a $3,000. It was a nice round number. And then you charge $1,500. But what did that $1,500 go to? All towards the booking of that date on your calendar? I doubt it. You're probably they're like, oh, I want a partial refund. And then you are there arguing, well, here's all the things that I perform throughout the year. I don't think you deserve even a partial refund of that retainer. That is the entire issue. If they cancel or reschedule because you haven't performed services for them at all, and you charge other clients a lesser amount for booking a very similar date on your calendar, say the other clients of yours for the Saturday after this client booked, maybe only paid a $750 retainer. They could definitely argue that that is unreasonable, that you charge them this like a different amount. And so they deserve a partial refund. Now, if you want to take on that risk and you didn't have any issues in 2020 with clients and refunds and you had nice rounded numbers and everything was hunky dory, great. Like that's your prerogative to keep your fees the way they are. But I think that laying all of that out in your contract regarding what amount of the fee is going towards what, whether that's planning, whether that's upfront communication with your clients, and whether that's booking the actual date and crossing that date off on your calendar is extremely important, that fee section in your contract. Another question someone asked me is, Paige, I'm really worried about travel costs within all of my packages. Realistically, travel costs is actually huge for photographers who work outside of their immediate area. And we used to kind of roll this into our, total fee because that's what the educator taught me to do that I was learning from. And this person was like, I'm uncomfortable paying out of pocket for non-refundable travel when the client can cancel anytime. Okay, so I know you guys may have been taught differently from other educators, but legally speaking, the best way to go about charging for travel is to have your clients reimburse you for non-refundable amounts for the actual cost of your travel. I don't like wrapping travel fees into like an all-inclusive package. I just don't like it, but you can do what you want. Like you are the master of your own business. And like this person mentioned in this question, when travel becomes non-refundable from the carrier, you would always be out of money. But if you can really parse that out in your fee section in your contract, you may be able to clearly explain to your clients that once that like this amount is to go towards all like travel fees. And upon booking, once the photographer books, it's completely non-refundable. Like you'd have to lay that out pretty clear in your contract. I, though, would always impute that liability on the client since they're the ones asking you to travel to X location for them, which is why I think that should not be a part of your all-inclusive pricing. And you should have them pay for travel. Like you could book it and then they could reimburse you for the exact amount. Now, if you decide to have that travel be all-inclusive, just remember you're taking on that liability for yourself. And I would explain that in the contract, what portion of the all-inclusive amount is for travel costs, because I know that was a huge issue with a lot of my clients through my one-on-one virtual law firm, Griffith Law, that we were kind of parsing out like what had been paid and what is non-refundable, and can the photographer get a credit? And does that mean that the client deserves a refund? Like there's so many issues with that all-inclusive pricing. So I don't like it. I just would suggest you don't do it. But again, you do what you want, boo. You do you. Another question that someone asked me, this seems like, Paige, you're telling me to do like multiple and endless fees and lay that all out and then tell all my clients about those fees. And I don't think that's going to go over too well with them. They're going to think that I'm hella expensive. Okay. Again, choose how you want to run your business. I personally, though, do not think this is multiple and endless fees. Instead, I think it's actually way more clear because it can be laid out as a simple installment payment plan. And if you just explain that to your clients, they're gonna be like, oh, this makes sense. And those installment payments, you guys, can still be like really nice flat fee numbers, but it will save you as the business owner in the long run. Now, for like adventure elopement photographers in particular, you can easily split your total cost into, say, 5 installment payments over time. So you explain to your clients what those payments are for, like the upfront cost for planning services for the first 60 to 90 days. And then every payment thereafter is going to go towards communication and planning services such as XXX. And you could say such as, but not limited to XXX. And then it's non-refundable because you've already performed those services. Again, I think this is actually going to help you because you'd have the flat fee booking retainer that's non-refundable. Maybe it's transferable, but all of the services you perform and the payments that you receive from your clients for those services would never be refundable and transferable because you've already performed those hours of service. That's super, super important here. Someone else slid into my DMs and was like, is this flat fee model really necessary? Like, what's the likelihood of us getting sued as a vendor if we use the percentage model? Okay, well, I can tell you from experience, I wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't something that I would heed to the entire wedding and elopement industry, because I think you guys have been hit the hardest as small business owners in 2020 with lawsuits. Like, I'm experiencing it. I see behind the curtain. I see so many people are airing their dirty laundry online, right? Because they don't want prospective clients to think that they're getting sued. People are getting sued. People are settling. Remember, like 99% of lawsuits settle, 97 to 99% of lawsuits settle. So even if people aren't in court and talking about like, oh, the judge is like handling this, or I have to go to court today, or small claims court, they've probably settled with clients who are either threatening to file suit or who have filed suit. I'm just going to stop here and say, you need to figure out how risk averse you are as a business owner. I'm here to be like, here are some ways that you could be very, very, very risk averse in your business if you use a flat fee retainer model. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Maybe you're more risky as a business owner. Then move forward with your business as such. But I would not be talking about this if it wasn't an issue and reasonableness of retainers wasn't being argued in court multiple times, hundreds of times, if not thousands of times by clients. This is what their attorneys are arguing. And I want you guys to take that argument out of their hands by having a flat fee retainer. Next question. Paige, are you really saying we should be surviving off of like $1,000 to $1,500 retainer? A huge part of why wedding vendors could survive this season in 2020 and the shutdown was because of the size of retainers. My answer. This is easily resolved by having a non-refundable but maybe transferable booking retainer plus the big upfront cost or installment payments throughout the process that are non-refundable and non-transferable. Like I said, because you've already performed the services and you're never going to get that time back. So no court is going to say that you have to refund that money. You've performed the services and you've explained to your clients what you have performed when. That's why I always think you need to have kind of like that larger chunk that's due as the final payment, 30 to 60 days, because that's the one that really you need to be worried about for clients either not paying because they're canceling or rescheduling or asking for a refund for because you never actually showed up day of, performed the actual services that you had for their wedding or elopement day. Please understand, you guys, that this like $1,500 amount that I like talked about in episode 65 was just an example. Like, it was a simple way to break down numbers to everyone. And you may be taking like a $2,500 or $3,500 flat fee booking retainer or more for your like very specific wedding package or floral package or like elopement package. You have to look at your packages, your numbers, and your business. Also, this person was really like, I'm really like, how are we surviving off of $1,500? I'm like, being a photographer in general does not look the best on paper, and neither does being an entrepreneur, because you are relying heavily on seasons and clients' events actually happening. You will always be getting paid a certain amount up front for booking a date out on the calendar, and then another large amount for actually performing and delivering services. So whenever you book a client, you have no idea what the future holds with them potentially canceling or rescheduling, or God forbid, a force majeure event happening like we did this year with COVID. If you wanted a job that had consistent income every month and you're like, how are we surviving off of $1,500 retainers? We'll never be able to like pay our mortgages and do this stuff. I'm like, honey bunches of oats. Like, you should never have become a photographer or entrepreneur in general. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that one. Like, it is ups and downs as an entrepreneur. And then the last question that I wanted to go over was this. Someone asked, with the flat fee model, it seems like we're supposed to justify and itemize hourly for all of our services directly to each wedding or event. But we have like back-end costs that go into that with contractors, and we want to pay ourselves for the back-end work that we do. And we probably outsource back-end work. What do you suggest, Paige? Do I have to itemize everything hourly? I don't think you need to itemize it hourly, but you definitely need to extrapolate. Like, if you say a $10,000 package, this is just easy. You have a $1,500 booking retainer, and then maybe you even have like a, $2,000 on top of that for upfront costs that go towards XYZ. And then you have 3 more installment payments, and you list out in your contract what all those are for. And maybe you also include all-inclusive travel fee, but you say up to $1,000 for travel fee costs is completely non-refundable upon booking with the company. And then you have maybe that $3,000, that's the final payment. Okay. So you have been paid up to 30 to 60 days prior to the event date, almost $7,000 with a $10,000 package. That is important because by not itemizing your work, that was the biggest issue of 2020 due to COVID. Clients were constantly asking what things you had actually done for them besides just sending out a contract and booking the date on their calendar. They had no idea because no photographer or videographer was actually explaining this in their contract. They're just like, here are the installment payments, thanks. And then your clients are like, okay, cool, you booked out that date on my calendar, but like, really, I haven't seen any services that you performed yet. And I only really hired you to perform those services on the day. And I'm over here like, you guys, that is such an easy argument for these clients to make and their attorneys to make. Every day of the week, they are going to win the argument that they deserve some type of refund if you're trying to keep like 80% of the fees that they've paid because you never actually showed up and shot. They had to cancel due to COVID. Like, they're going to have to get some type of partial refund because you didn't lay that out in your contract. So the clients definitely hired you to photograph and deliver those images to them. That is like the basic thing that they hired you to do. I want you to explain to your clients what the installment amounts go to generally in your contracts, such as the booking retainer, upfront fee for planning, maybe a couple other fees that might be transferable. Okay, so maybe they're non-refundable, but they're transferable, like the retainer. And then the final payment that would go towards photographing and post-processing duties, including paying like contractors like that you outsource, such as editors. Do you want to purchase some contracts and clauses to protect your business at a fraction of the regular price? Good news, I've got you covered. Over the week of Black Friday this year, the Legal Paige is offering its lowest prices of the season. I'm talking over 40%. That's right, you heard me, over 40%. But I'm not going to tell you the actual amount. And you've got to be a TLP insider to get the scoop. You'll get the biggest discounts, than what is released to the general public. Make sure to head to bit.ly/TLP Insider to sign up now and get the first to know information about our Black Friday deals. Again, that's bit.ly/TLP Insider. So as I wrap up here, I just want to say that flat fee retainers is a big change. Like, I 100% get that, my friends. It's uncomfortable, but moving to a system that will have this very specific legal impact on your business and take away that argument for your clients is so necessary, even though it may be a bit scary. I promise you in the long run that you will love this method. It just changes scary. I get that. It makes sense, though, on all standpoints from the consumer to have their fees and the whole structure laid out in their contract so that there's no ambiguity there. To you, it also makes sense as the wedding or elopement vendor because you are charging the same amount per client and you're never going to get into a sticky situation. So from a legal standpoint, it's good as well. Change is hard, but when you can pivot and make this change, it's going to save you money, time, and heartache in the long run. I promise, swear. And let's be real, that's what I'm here as a lawyer to help you with is all of those what if situations. That's what I do. That's why you listen to this podcast. You're like, how can Paige help me from this what if situation? And if you take it or leave it, right? Like if you don't want to do this, that's fine. But we all know that COVID hit the wedding industry hard this year as one of the biggest what if situations to date. So I'd argue now more than ever, it's definitely time to make a change to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again, with clients arguing about your retainer fees and the reasonableness of those retainer fees. In sum, do what makes sense for your business and what you're most comfortable doing. I am an attorney here at TLP. I read the law. I see both sides. I give you insight into potential legal issues down the road, and I help you navigate those legalities beforehand. If you are, not sure, at least you're fully equipped now at this point with understanding either or. Percentage retainers or flat fee retainers, and you're aware of what could occur down the road in regards to taking those different types of booking retainers. Just be ready to argue your side. That's what lawsuits are, two or more sides arguing an issue to figure out who is right by way of a court interpreting the law or by settling prior to the court making the final determination. You are the master of your own business. You are the owner. You can do what you want. Obviously, I highly suggest flat fee retainers. And I hope that a lot of this Q&A with a follow-up from our flat fee retainer episode number 65 was helpful to you. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out at thelegalpage.com or you can come chat with me in the Legal Page community on Facebook. Until next time, my friends, I promise I'll chat with you soon in the next podcast episode. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Page podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.